Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Petunia's Place, celebrating Independent Bookstore Day Saturday, April 26 with a special story time at 11 a.m. Drawings, giveaways, and book signings at 1 p.m. featuring authors Christina Lynch, Janine Raymond, Francesca Parisi, and Jessica Kulekshian. Details at petuniasbooks.com. And from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's April 25th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Coming up, in the wake of devastating wildfires in LA, a new investigation reveals that a software used by many insurance companies is leaving some homeowners without sufficient coverage.
So we found many instances where people who had 360 value estimates were underinsured by 40% or more.
We'll learn more in just a moment, but first, these news headlines. The American Lung Association has given failing grades for air quality to multiple California cities and counties. San Bernardino and San Joaquin Valley cities have once again been ranked among the worst. KVCR's Anthony Victoria has more.
Some 34 million Californians live in a county with a failing grade. San Bernardino remains one of the smoggiest areas in the state. The report shows the county experienced about 5 months or 150 days worth of unhealthy ozone pollution. Ana Gonzalez is with the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice.
We already know that our kids are going to be missing school or be sick for some time. And that's really sad that it's almost like they're adapting to it.
Some air advocates say there's still reason for hope. Between 2021 and 2023, Fresno recorded some of its lowest levels of ozone and particle pollution. Dr. Alexander Sheriffs, a board member with the San Joaquin Air Pollution District, says industry and regulators are working together to fulfill the Clean Air Act.
We can make progress, meaningful progress, in one of the most challenged air basins in our state and nation.
The American Lung Association says California can continue to lead in clean air by investing in electric vehicles and maintaining strong regulations, even if federal standards are rolled back.
That was Anthony Victoria with our California newsroom partner, KVCR. Bakersfield city leaders have walked back a plan to raise sewer rates. As KVPR's Carrie Klein reports, the decision was announced at Wednesday's city council meeting.
City Manager Christian Clegg said his office has received a, quote, extraordinary number of inquiries ever since proposing a 300% increase in sewer rates earlier this month. Clegg said the city will rescind the current proposal, then propose a different one after some outreach.
We also understand the need to work closer with community and explore multiple alternatives that can address the issue.
Residents currently pay $19 per month for city sewer service. Under the proposal, the monthly fee would have jumped to $79 per month. Water fees would have increased as well. City leaders have said that current water and sewer rates in Bakersfield are too low to repair aging infrastructure. For KVPR News, I'm Carrie Klein.
During a packed school board meeting this week, Fresno Unified leaders announced a new superintendent.
On a motion by Board Member Thomas, seconded by Board Member Islas, myself, the board took action in closed session to select Mal Misty Herr as the district superintendent.
Misty Herr had been serving as interim superintendent since last May. The official appointment marks the end of a long and contentious search for a leader to head the state's third largest school district. Dozens filled the boardroom to celebrate.
I am ready. I have already begun to do this work, and I believe with my whole heart that we are going to succeed.
Herr is the district's first permanent female superintendent and the first Asian American to hold the position. She'll take full leadership of the district next week after her contract is finalized by the board. A Fresno Poet Laureate has been reappointed as California's Poet Laureate. Lee Herrick just finished his first 2-year term as Poet Laureate and will now serve another 2 years. In his first term, he created the Our California Project to solicit poems from across the state. Herrick is an English professor at Fresno City College. He also served as the City of Fresno's Poet Laureate a decade ago.
One of the Valley's premier events is just around the corner. The annual KVPR Wine and Craft Beer Tasting is May 4th. It's time again to gather by the San Joaquin River to enjoy wine, beer, food, music, and friends. The Lester Estate will again host this year's event, appropriately titled Let's Raise a Glass. Complimentary round-trip bus transportation, including lunch, will be provided in Bakersfield and Visalia. Tickets are on sale now at kvpr.org/wine.
And now to our main story. As California continues to pick up the pieces from devastating wildfires earlier this year, homeowners are sifting through options on how to rebuild. Many homeowners had insurance that would help them cover some of the costs of rebuilding, but many others didn't have insurance when the fires hit. In fact, a new lawsuit filed by homeowners in the Southern California communities of Altadena and Pacific Palisades accuses major insurance companies of colluding to drop their policies. And now we're learning about a little-known tool that plays a major role in how insurance companies estimate coverage and rebuilding costs for homes. And it's had implications for homeowners who have faced fire disasters in recent years. Today we're diving into that tool, known as 360 Value. We're talking with two reporters who spent time investigating the use of the tool by major insurance companies. They found many issues with the way it's used, primarily with the system's algorithm. Susie Neilson and Megan Munce published their investigation for the San Francisco Chronicle. Susie begins our conversation by discussing a family that's been affected by underinsurance.
I'd love to focus on one of the families that we interviewed in depth for this story, the Salazar family. So we spent a fair amount of time with Richard and Linda Salazar, an elderly couple who live in Grizzly Flats, which is a rural community in the Sierra Nevada foothills. Linda and Richard have owned their house for a couple of decades, and they escaped from the city to this beautiful community in the mountains because they had experienced a lot of hardship in their youth, and it really felt like, as they called it, their little slice of heaven up in Grizzly Flats. And prior to 2021, which is where their real story begins, they had purchased a home insurance policy with Farmers Insurance. And they told us that they had every reason to believe that that policy would cover their home in the event of a loss. And they cared about that a lot because they knew that they were in this risky fire risk area in Grizzly Flats, surrounded by trees, in this rural area. They even bought additional insurance coverage, what's called extended replacement coverage, just in case, just to feel comfortable and safe that they had enough insurance. And then in 2021, when the Caldor fire hit, it devastated Grizzly Flats. It wiped out more than 400 homes, including the Salazar's home. And it was only then that they learned that their insurance policy was only going to give them about $340,000, but a contractor told them it would actually cost about $540,000 to replace their home. So they were hundreds of thousands of dollars short of what they'd need to rebuild.
Yeah, and there are other stories like that in your reporting. Megan, in your reporting with Susie, you both described this concept of, quote, underinsurance. Can you just explain exactly what that is?
Absolutely. So the vast, vast majority of Californians, 97%, according to the California Department of Insurance, have a home insurance policy that's called replacement cost coverage. And to a lot of homeowners, you might hear that and think, okay, this home insurance policy is going to replace my home if it burns down in a wildfire. But the truth is that these policies come with a set coverage limit, a maximum amount that your insurance company will pay you if you lose your home. So underinsurance, we found, is what happens when someone's home burns down and their coverage limit is too low to sometimes even approach the idea of rebuilding their house. And it can impact people in a variety of ways. It can be caused by a variety of things, but a major driver, according to our reporting, is that insurance companies are using algorithms to set these coverage limits that are routinely underestimating the cost of building in California.
Susie, you also report about a system that these major insurers use to determine estimates for home insurance called 360 Value. And you made some pretty startling discoveries about this. How does it work? Or maybe the bigger question is, does it work?
What Megan and I found was about 2/3 of the insurance market in the U.S. relies on this tool called 360 Value to set coverage limits for homeowners. So what that means is that more likely than not, maybe your insurance policy was set with this tool. And it's what's called a component cost algorithm, which sounds really wonky. But what it basically is it's a tool that tries to sketch this picture of what your house looks like based on how many planks it has, what its roof looks like, how many bathrooms it has, how many nails are, holding it together, like that level of detail. And using all that information, which it tries to put together from all this data, it then spits out an estimate of what it would cost to rebuild the exact home that you have today, if it burned down in a fire or if it was destroyed in some other way. And that is what usually is the number that you get for your insurance. So what we found is that the company that created 360 Value, Verisk, will always say that they don't claim that their tool is accurate. And that's because they say it's impossible to accurately measure exactly how much it would cost. But we found that it's not just that it's not 100% accurate, that often 360 Value isn't even getting close. So we found many instances where people who had 360 Value estimates were underinsured by 40% or more. And we bought the tool ourselves actually to test it out. And we tested it out on a number of homes. And so one thing that the tool does is it automatically fills in a bunch of data about your house. It's basically making all these educated guesses. And we found that a lot of time those educated guesses were wrong.
I mean, Susie, can we outline some of the major insurers that are relying on this tool, and are they still relying on it?
Yes. Megan and I identified 4 major insurance companies in California, together representing about 40% of the market. And it's likely that there's a lot more insurance companies. We just focused on these 4 because we found a lot of records about them. So they are State Farm, Farmers Insurance, USAA, and CSAA, the Northern California arm of AAA. So all of these companies have either found out through lawsuits or government investigations or both that their use of 360 Value was causing many of their policyholders to be steeply underinsured. And in fact, in one part of the story, we go into depth about Farmers Insurance because we obtained this big trove of records from a lawsuit against Farmers that showed that employees at Farmers had done this internal investigation that found that many of their wildfire survivors that had policies were steeply underinsured. And, they investigated it, they looked into it. And then several months in, they decided to stop their investigation because they were worried about getting sued, basically. The emails show that they had gotten all these complaints and they were worried about creating additional records that might incriminate them. And so they basically just terminated their investigation.
And Megan, I know you both tried to take this information and concerns from homeowners directly to insurers. You were not really given an answer by them. So how is the insurance industry responding to your investigation?
Across the board, most of the insurance companies we reached out to declined to comment and asked us to speak with representatives of different industry groups. And what those representatives of industry groups told us is that insurance companies don't have an incentive to underinsure people, that if they were fully insuring homes, then they would be providing better customer service and they would also be collecting more in premiums. But what we find is that that's completely out of touch with the empirical evidence. I mean, there are surveys from California wildfires finding that as many as 70 to 80% of people in those fires were underinsured. There are academic studies in other states like Colorado that show that about 3/4 of people there are underinsured. And so if the insurance industry has no incentive, there's a question of, well, then why are so many people underinsured? And a response that they'll give is that people are shopping around, they're looking for the lowest premium, and they may not be paying attention to the fact that a lower premium is coming at the expense of a lower coverage amount. And I think if we were in a normal market, you could see that someone who is being informed about their insurance policy and is shopping around can say, thanks for that offer, but I want more coverage, and so I'll go to a different insurance company. But what we're seeing in the current environment is that people just are trying to get any insurance policy they can if it's not the California Fair Plan. And so they may go to a company who tells them, we'll only give you this much coverage. We're hearing a lot of people who read our investigation and went to their insurance company and said, I think I might be underinsured. Can I have more coverage? To which their insurance company told them, no, our calculator says you don't need that much more coverage, or we aren't insuring homes for that amount. And so I think the current insurance crisis is really exacerbating this issue and reinforcing that it really isn't homeowners these days who are choosing how much coverage or whether they're fully insured.
That was my conversation with reporters Susie Neilson and Megan Fan Munce. They investigated the use of a tool known as 360 Value. That's a tool that's used to estimate insurance costs for homeowners. Their investigation found that the system's algorithm is filled with problems. You can read their full investigation on the San Francisco Chronicle website. Their story's titled, "A Broken System is Keeping California Homes Underinsured. Millions have no idea they're at risk." And that's today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
This is Tanya Mosley, co-host of Fresh Air. You'll see your favorite actors, directors, and comedians on late-night TV shows or YouTube. But what you get with Fresh Air is a deep dive. Spend some quality time with people like Billie Eilish, Questlove, Ariana Grande, Stephen Colbert, and so many more. We ask questions you won't hear asked anywhere else. Listen to the Fresh Air podcast from NPR and WHYY.